Right. Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
And I'm Paul Ogden.
We're here discussing marriage equality, as it's been characterized by some, gay marriage.
Same-sex marriage.
Same-sex marriage, same-gender marriage. Our guests are Anthony Simons, who's a Pike Township GOP ward chairman here in Marion County. GOP is Republican. And also Jeff Cox, who's a blogger on
No Boxes Allowed.
We've been talking about polling. We were talking about different problems associated with, I guess, homosexual activity. And I think that there's just as many health problems with heterosexual activity. Probably more, since there are more heterosexuals. Well, let's go to the basis of the importance of the institution of marriage, because after we went off the last segment, we started talking about the importance of marriage as an institution to society. Why? Why is that?
Well, I mean, I've seen studies where, and I think with the Indiana Family Institute you had alluded to, I've seen some of their studies as far as the when you look at a mother and a father, and that is kind of the basic building block of the family unit of society. And the reason why government has sanctioned marriage is it's a public policy decision that creates or encourages families. It encourages those to get married so that it's for the betterment of society. One of the roles of government is to improve society or to help society along, or a more civilized society. And that's why I think marriage is definitely important and should be encouraged, and that we should sanction in some way within the government, because the mother and the father studies have shown that is the best way to go.
And children do better
children do better.
of nuclear families, on average, certainly.
I don't know that I think that the methodology, the studies about the nuclear family are somewhat off, because I think there are studies that also show that when there are two active parents who are loving and engaged in a family, and same gender parents, that they provide as good of an environment for those children, which in part of the problem, if they can't, has to do with bias of the society around them. Because I think that one impression is if a kid's got two parents that are of the same gender, that kid is going to have a lot of hassles at school. And I think
Do you think that really is the case, though? Do you think who's hassling the kids at school?
Other kids.
Yeah, other kids. I mean, I can look back to when I was a kid.
Kids can be vicious.
Kids can be really vicious.
It may lead to our next show, bullying.
Yes, next week we're going to do a show on bullying.
Yes.
And we're looking for a pro-bullying
Group
to come on here and promote it. But in my high school, if somebody,
But Mark, that was in the 40s or 50s when you were in high school, right?
Next week, I will be hosting this show. Paul will, but I went to grade school in the 60s, and I graduated in 1973, so let's not get carried away with the age thing. But there was a great bias and prejudice against people who are perceived as being gay, even when I got into college. And that was something that made no sense to me, but people would catch hassles for being gay. The irony was that a survey done the year after I graduated from DePauw indicated that something like 40% of the students at DePauw, 38% of the students, that always seems to be a common popular percentage. 38% of people are something. 38% of the students at DePauw were gay or bisexual, and of course at Wabash, all of them were just weird in some way.
Okay. But you're talking about the students. You're not talking about the parents.
No, but see, in my high school, in grade school, if parents had been gay of a child, that kid would have got the crap beat out of him or her. I'm sorry. I'm wrong about that.
I don't think that would be the case.
Kids make fun of anyone who's different. Yeah. Now, most of them outgrow that, but any kid who is different gets made fun of, gets picked on, gets beat up.
That's not the kid that's different; it's the parents.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because the peer group will view the difference as being from the parent. And look, it's difficult to separate oneself from a stigma of siblings that have gone through school ahead of one. I mean, when one's siblings have not exactly been being popular in school, like an older brother's gone through and is not being very well liked by teachers, administrators, or anybody, then coming through can be something of a thing to overcome. So going back to what we were talking about, as far as the importance of marriage, I think there's an idea that if you don't get married, something is wrong, and I think that's beginning to fade. I think you saw that in the movie Airplane, where the one female character said, "I'm 26 and I'm not married yet," and the plane's going down, and a stewardess comes around the corner and goes, "All I can say is I'm 26 and thank God I'm married." You know, and fewer people are getting married now.
But I think marriage is important. It's a commitment you make to another human being. We can question whether that's okay for the same-sex couples, but that there's an importance of that commitment. Rather just living together, you don't have that same type of moral and legal commitment.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you in terms of you don't have the same moral commitment. If two people commit to an exclusive relationship and they live together and they've made that commitment to one another, that's morally that's the same thing. If they've made a promise to each other and said, we're going to do this and we're going to form a family and we're together for the rest of our lives, I think that's a moral commitment.
As significant as going through the formal process of getting married and having legally being bound to one another.
But what if?
Yes, because if they personally between one another make a personal agreement and contract on that deep of a basis,
and then you're in the libertarian position.
I'm a libertine. Be careful.
What if they don't want to form a family? What if they just want to get married?
Yeah, and there are situations like that. My mom, my dad passed away. My mom got married later in life, when she was beyond childbearing years.
I mean, what you guys were talking about earlier involves, raising kids. A nuclear family is good for raising a kid. Well, that's fine. Is that the only justification for marriage? I don't
personally think it is, because you have people who are sterile getting married, and I think it's important that we encourage. And I don't buy that living together. Okay, we made a personal commitment to each other. Until you put it in writing, until you're legally bound, it's not the same thing. I don't think it is.
Because it still creates a civilized society, even if you're not, bearing children. Having two married individuals who are in a moral, legal compact, I think creates more of a civilized society.
Okay, then why shouldn't gays and lesbians be allowed to do it with each other?
Because I don't think we should encourage that type of behavior. I don't think government should be in that field of encouraging that type of what I think is harmful behavior, and I think statistics show it. And I guess it's a good time for me to bring this
I've been waiting, because the book was sitting there and I wasn't.
In case for those who want to know a kind of a book thing here, this is a book I recommend, Legislating Morality. It's by Dr. Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. This is a very good book for either side. If you're for or against it, it has some good evidence here. But this is from an Omega study that was done, I don't know what the year was, but they had a population with the married men, single men, homosexual men, that type of thing, with the median age of death. And married men, they said the median age of death is 75. For single or divorced men, it's 57. Then when you go to homosexual men without AIDS, it's 42. Homosexual men without AIDS with a long-term relationship is 41. Homosexual men with AIDS is 39. With AIDS with a partner is 39 as well. So what we're seeing is the median age of death halfway that, almost half that median age. And what's interesting is those that have without AIDS that have a long-term partner actually has a worse age, or a worse a worse age for death than they do with those that don't have a partner that don't have AIDS. So I think, as far as a public policy standpoint, in encouraging behavior that lengthens a life of people here in this country, I don't think the government should be in the business of encouraging behavior that actually limits the age of a person.
And I would counter that, Anthony, by saying a lot of those statistics could be due to the fact of prejudice against people who live a lifestyle, a gay lifestyle, a lesbian lifestyle, whatever that lifestyle is. There's a terrible stigma to it.
There's suicide.
Suicide is high.
High in the gay community.
And so there are many factors to put into that actually that study kind of justifies why we should give the American Psychological Association, the American Sociological Association, both stated in 2004 that giving equal status to people who are gay, lesbian in terms of marital status, that enhances the health of the society, enhances the health of the individuals. It gives them the same status. We watched on Chris Matthews last night. I know you're going to sit there and go, oh, well, you watch MSNBC.
Oh, yeah,
so you're the viewer.
Yeah, but, and the one guy that was on there that normally is kind of like I perceived him as being kind of right wing. He started saying, you don't know what the impact was to me the other night when I watched on TV and the President of the United States said that I'm equal to him. And then he started breaking up and crying at the end. And so I think a lot of your statistics about how long-term health and everything is better for people who are heterosexual, a lot of stressors in society cause disease and cause shortened life, cause suicides, and those can be explained by, well, when the society advances and we're more acceptable of people's lifestyles like that, then we're not going to have the same health problems.
One conservative argument I would say a conservative argument for same-sex marriage, I said that correctly, is that it would encourage monogamy. And that's a pretty persuasive argument to me, that having people in monogamous relationship instead of sleeping around is healthy.
It's not the sleeping. It's not the sleeping.
Well, they're doing more than sleeping. But I think there is certainly a strong argument that allowing same-sex marriage does encourage people towards monogamy, which I am in favor of, certainly.
Yeah, and I'll go back to that. I think probably the basis of my argument is that I think the behavior itself, I think we've seen from a non-religious standpoint, because I'm trying to take religion out of this, because I think that's, some people believe it's a sin, some people believe it's not. And
I think we'll get into that in the next segment, because I think that's important to address.
Yeah, but I'm trying to approach this from a point where people who are not maybe religious or Christian, or who could care less whether it's a sin or not, why they still would think that we should only have a traditional marriage. And I think it really what it comes down to is a public policy standpoint with the public health. And I understand what you're saying with stressors and everything, with mental disease and suicide rates. But I mean, we are seeing that continue on. I would think when you look at the obituaries and everything, and we're seeing AIDS and whatnot. I mean, I think it's just I think we're going to probably I haven't seen this study, but I would like to see a study of those in other countries who have already legalized gay marriage and what the median age of their life is. That would be an interesting study to look at there.
I think we can get to that. One last thing before we end this segment. People's lives also are extended by owning a pet. So I think that people should take
we should maybe encourage that.
Yes, but not. So we'll be back in just a minute.